Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. You want to run your computer colder longer and for absolutely free. Yes, I said free in the title because it is free, obviously. Whether you run a Mac or a PC, there is software out there that if you don't already have it built into your Windows computer, because you won't in your Mac, but in your Windows computers, a lot of them do come with software already from the factory, especially in name brand computers, where you will have control over the computer with a lot of features, including your fan speeds. So for your video card and for your CPU, etc. Okay, so now you can leave these systems automated. That's perfectly fine. Go ahead. I mean, doesn't really matter, but your fan speed could end up ramping up a lot sooner because, oh wait, your processor, your GPU is getting hot really super fast. And so your fans are going to be going, like really crazy, right? And you're like, okay, this kind of sucks. But if you ran the fans already at a higher level, it would take a lot longer time before that would actually occur, okay? Where your computer's going to get too hot. And so there is software out there where you can dictate the speed and it would still be able to ramp up either way if it needed to. But at least if you can keep it colder longer, you might even be able to avoid in some cases the thermal throttling effects, okay? And ramping up those speeds, in which a lot of fans, when they run really fast, they can be quite freaking annoying, as we know. MacBook Pros, they're really nasty for fans, for noise, Apple really has to figure out another way to make them even quieter, right? But PC laptops are no different to this, right? Even the fans in my gamer system, they can ramp up just playing a video game for a few minutes and they just go, wah! But if I dictate the speed ahead of time, it's going to be a lot longer before I'll even hear that because the system is being kept completely cooled way before I even start playing any games. And yeah, it's going to take a lot more for the components to heat up and to try and even exceed that speed and then make it go faster, okay? So there's benefits to this. It's called lengthening the lifespan of your computer too, because we know that heat is one thing in life that kills electronics, especially computers, but anything, right? So we need optimal cooling systems to keep things running cooler. They run more efficiently, okay, more effectively and efficiently. So let's take a look at, for PC users, some free programs because not every PC has these features built in with the company software. So if you don't, you might want to take a look at one of these particular programs, which are free to download and use. Now, there may be features that you may want to pay for to unlock the full potential of the program. Other programs may have everything 100% free. It kind of depends upon the program. But let's take a look and see what we got for both Mac and PC users alike. About the fan programs for free. Just remember, when it comes to Apple, everything's always automated. It's just the way they do things. And a lot of other companies are the same way in the Windows world. Some Windows computers will already have software in there. You don't need to download any of this stuff because it'll already be there for you, okay? One prime example I can give you is the Asus TUF 17, which is the computer I have for gaming for Windows, and the software is already there and I can do whatever I want. Anyways, so let's move on. Fan control software. These are kind of like the top 6, right? Fan control, EasyTune 5, Argus Monitor, HW Monitor, which is, I believe, also available for Mac too, Zotac Firestorm, and Speed Fan. Now, I found this website. I have not looked into any of these programs myself, but I looked for free fan control programs. This is what it gave me. So take a look at them, see what you think of these ones. There's probably a lot more other options out there as well. Different features are available in each one, etc., etc. So check that out. Now, for Mac users specifically, depending on how in depth you want to go, this is a program called Max Fan Speed Control, and this is also now Apple Silicon as well, which is fantastic because I got an Apple Silicon Mac here, and I've got the Mac M1 Mini, with 16 gigabytes of RAM, half a terabyte of storage, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, with the free version of Max Fan Speed Control, because you can get the pro version that you pay for, which is no big deal. You still get updates to this one anyways, okay? But you get a little bit of limitation. But the most important thing I care about is I need to control the speed of my fan, and I want to know, at least with what hardware is being shown, what kind of temperatures we're dealing with here, okay? Because CPU is a big thing, Thunderbolt proximity, etc. Your neural engine, efficiency cores, performance cores, your drives. Now, the only drive it's going to be able to control for temperature is going to be your internal, right? In this case, it's the Apple SSD. I definitely have control over how cool I can keep that drive. I have no control over my two Kingston drives. They are external Thunderbolt drives. They're also in what's called a fanless case. So there's no fans in these cases. So the only temperature control I get is the aluminum cases themselves, which help reduce a lot of heat, expend it, as well as if I want to, I can use those thermal pads, which I choose not to. Thermal pads are kind of interesting. You've got to read a lot of reviews, and I do mean a lot of reviews on them, because some of them actually will increase your heat, which I did try on a really cheap one that I got with a drive unit, and it increased its heat, it didn't decrease it. So it's kind of like, yeah, so not all of them work. Some of them will actually blow your stuff up on you. But either way, my drives, my computer has never once even been in danger of thermal throttling, even without using this program, because I don't task my computer that hard, mainly because the only tasking I can do it that would be hard tasking would be video editing. And because I'm not like a lot of YouTube creators where I do like 4 and 8 and 12K stuff, I don't do any of that. I do 1080p, or I do the odd 4K video when I deem it necessary. And it's kind of a one-liner, right? All my videos are pretty much a one-liner unless I want to get a little bit more sophisticated with it. You know, multi-piecing things, like this video is in multi-piece, but it's not really tasking the computer anyway. But I'm talking like, you know, building a whole friggin' city block of, you know, timelines and audio clippings and transitionings and all that. And then we start, you know, doing stuff in our rendering, and we're color filtering, and we're denoising stuff. And I mean, that's tasking your computer really hard, okay? And then, of course, you got to export all this stuff later, which could take a while, depending on not only your computer and its performance capability, but also the program in which you're using makes a difference too. Now, I only have 2 video editors that I play around with. I use iMovie mostly. I love it. And, of course, I dabble here and there with DaVinci Resolve, the actual newest release version, which is a beta version, and it's pretty nice compared to the regular DaVinci. So I've been kind of playing with it. Now, it's a tasking program on your computer. It really wants to eat, you know what I mean? Where iMovie's not so bad, and iMovie actually comes for free too, but even the DaVinci that I'm using is also free. And in the free version of DaVinci, there's only a couple of features that you don't get access to unless you pay for the program. And it's kind of like, well, I don't really need those features, so I'll stick with free for me. And this is the same thing. Max Fan Control can be free or paid, but even the free version is very, very good for what it does, and it helps me to keep an eye on my system. And I have found that for at least my Mac Mini, okay, the sweet spot seems to be 3,000 RPM constant value. So you have minimum, you have current, and you have max RPMs. Now, when you're keeping it at a constant value, generally the Mac Mini, period, okay, the fan speed always stays at freaking idle, okay? I mean, it's at 1700 and that's it. I mean, unless you're doing something really heavy duty, it might go up a little bit. And I've never once had my fans go really high on my Mac. And a lot of other people have experienced too that the Mac Mini seems to run really nice and cold, same as the Studios. But whereas the Mac laptops, well, they're just like little, you know, nuclear power plants sitting there going, yeah, you know what I mean? There's a lot of video footage on that. It's quite interesting. And this is why I did the video too on why you shouldn't be using Mac or Windows laptops for video editing because this is just not good for these computers at all. Desktop is where you do it, okay? But anyways, so with 3000 RPM, that's been my sweet spot. My temperatures are generally all under 40 degrees, except for power management die average is usually about 46 or so. 42 for the Thunderbolt proximity. Now, I have no control over my two Kingston drives. Like I said, they have no fan cooling in them, but I can control my Apple SSD, which actually doesn't even get used anymore. I'm actually, honestly, I'm using my Kingston drive 1 terabyte now, one of them, full-time as a boot drive. And I do all my video editing on my internal drive too. I don't do an external video editing on an external drive, and I'll do a video about that eventually and why you really shouldn't. But anyways, and that's on any computer platform. But when it comes to this sort of thing, we need to keep our computers running cooler as much as we can for as long as we can before those fan speeds can ramp up. And by setting it at 3000, which I said for my computer at least is the sweet spot for it, it might be a little higher on a MacBook or a laptop, like Windows laptop, where you might want to set a little higher. I still hear no noise out of my Mac Mini. In fact, it took 4,000 RPM to actually hear something, and then I maxed it out to 45, right? And it's like, oh, that is a little annoying, but I mean, it's still not very loud, but it's a little bit annoying. And I'm going to actually show you that right now. We're going to change the constant value. Now, I would not recommend running this as your idle speed all the time because it has no more room to ramp up. But, it also is a little annoying for the noise. So let's let that thing ramp up, and I'll put the mic near the computer and you can hear it. Hopefully. Okay, gonna grab the mic here. Now I'm going to drop it back to 4,000. Now I can still just hear it. $3,500. I can just barely hear that. Barely. And back to 3,000. And now I can't hear anything. Now I find 3,000 to be optimal. I can't hear it, which is great. I'm getting a lot better cooling at 3,000 than I do at 1,700. So even with the computer just basically doing nothing except right now it's running a web browser in the background, my screen recording software, which is built into the computer, and of course Max Fan is always up and running anyways. In the background, I just have the window up front to show you guys what's going on here. But different speeds, of course, affect things differently. And your computer will still ramp up in speed if it gets too hot, where 3,000 is not enough. It will still ramp up. But I would rather it not ramp up, or at least not have to ramp up so soon, okay? Or, the temperatures, controlling the temperatures, right? If you can control your temperatures to keep them cooler, for a longer period before the things heat up and start to ramp, that helps your performance of your computer a lot. I mean, there's a lot to be said about performance. Like, does more RAM help? Of course it does. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? But it's not always about the more the merrier. There are limitations to how much RAM you actually honestly need. And then, of course, CPU power. Yes, the more power you have, the better it can be to a certain point where it becomes overkill and a useless point, right? At least at this point in time with our current, software and whatnot, right? GPU power, same thing, Is there such thing as too much? Well, actually, yes, there is. Because you get to a certain point where you're just wasting money because there's nothing that can help out with that video. But there are advantages at the same time, okay? And one of the things I find about fan speed is it's an advantage to run it a lot faster, okay? Now, if you took 44.99, cut that in half, so 4,500, you cut it in half, you're going to get something like 2250, right? Well, that's not that far off from 3,000, right? So that'd be like the halfway point. And yes, it's still going to keep your computer running cooler, but I find that a little bit extra, that 3,000 mark on this computer at least seems to be its sweet spot. And my temperatures stay well under control. Nothing has ever been anywhere close to being in danger from thermal throttling for what I do. Now, you may be a lot heavier user than me, obviously, but still 3,000 is a great sweet spot to start with. You may have to go to 3,500 RPM all the time. So not only just for running low duty taskings, which are going to actually perform better, but mid-level to the high end are going to also perform a lot better with having more cooling at your computer. Okay, computers like to be in cool environments. They don't like heat. They don't perform very well when they're super hot. We've seen this. Every time a computer thermal throttles, yeah, things get sluggy and farty. And your projects can get screwed up on you too if you're thermal throttling the snot out of that thing. So keeping your computer as much as you can, below 100 Celsius, okay, or whatever that works out to in Fahrenheit, right? I'm a Canadian, I'm Celsius, right? And so the more you can keep it away from that 100 Celsius, the better it's going to perform, the longer it's going to last, and the least amount of chance for failure from constant overheats, because you won't be doing that. So you shouldn't actually have very many problems with your computer, or any at all, if you can stay away from those thermal throttle temperatures, okay, where things throttling down on you, okay. They do run a lot slower and increases time, but it also really cooks your computer bad. And we talked about that about laptops in a video why you shouldn't be using Windows or Mac laptops, or any laptop for that matter, for doing video editing or high tasking jobs, including gaming actually too on laptops. It's very hard on them. They get really super hot, where you could take the same exact spec computer into a desktop and yeah, it's going to run pretty much ice cold in comparison, right? So there's a lot to be said about the differences between laptops and desktops, obviously. But we do live in a world where people want to be more and more everything in one machine, and that's the way it goes, but there's a cost to pay for that in the end. But regardless of that, that's what I've got for you. So the cooler you can keep it, the better. Figure out what the sweet spot's going to be for your computer so that you still do not hear that fan, okay, or it's so minimal that it doesn't bother you, and keep it at that constant speed all the time for light, medium tasking. When things do task up, the fan speed will still ramp up. Don't worry about it. But the idea is to keep it running cooler all the time. Okay? And even at 1700 RPM, I can tell you right now, the Mac Mini does run slightly hotter at 1700 RPM, even at idle. This runs much cooler at 3000. So when I do apply a task to it, it's going to take a lot longer for it to reach the same temperatures that it had even at 1700 RPM. It's going to take a lot longer. And it's going to take longer still to raise the temperatures any higher than what it could possibly have gone to too, right? Because the fan cannot always keep up with the heat. It'll eventually get up there and start going, but it might be too late by then, and you're already thermal throttling. And if you've got an important project on the go, you do not want to thermal throttle, okay? You want to avoid that as much as you can, right? So, because otherwise things can go screwy with your project, even on an export, if you're already, popping 100 plus degrees out of your computer, So anyway, to each their own, I guess. So that's what I got for you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and got a lot out of it. And stay tuned. We'll have more computer stuff for you guys over the next while. See ya.